Fortuna Data is sitting down with Vawlt. In this conversation, we speak about the importance of cloud outages. And storage costs are skyrocketing. Outages are constant. Ransomware is everywhere. But Vawlt changes everything. We split your files into encrypted shards, distribute them across multiple clouds, eliminate API charges, and deploy in minutes. Resilient, cost-effective, future-proof. Let's dive into the conversation.
Welcome to Smarter Strategic Thinking. I'm Ray Quattramini from Fortuna Data. Today we have Stefan Ferrari from Vawlt. Firstly, how long have you been in the IT industry?
All in, probably around 15 years. Started off in healthcare, did an apprenticeship in IT for 5 years. Ended up going and working in some care homes and got made redundant. And then
From a care home?
Yeah. No, I rolled out a big project for them, and there was a promise of this job afterwards. And after the project, it was thanks very much, there's your redundancy. And I've moved my whole life away from Brighton as well and up to Oxfordshire, and I changed my whole life for this thing, and then got made redundant. But it led me down a route of going to look for something different from working in IT tech support to trying to find something a bit different. And I found this company called Synology, who were lesser known at the time, and started working there, tech support, and then started working in sales. And here we are going on for 10, 12 years later, working in the channel for that amount of time, in distribution, vendors, and various bits. And now I'm back in vendor land and here at Vawlt.
Yeah, once you're in IT, you can't get out.
No, you're trapped.
You are trapped. There's no going back. You're now working for Vawlt.
Yep.
What made you join Vawlt? Because I know you work for resellers, you work for obviously vendors. What's the thing that interests you with Vawlt?
So I found Vawlt when I was working at Titan Data Solutions, our distributor. They approached us and I had a conversation with them, and they showed me what they do, and it was just mind-blowing. Like what they were doing, it seems such a simple concept when you think about it. You just can't believe that anyone's not done it. But the way they've implemented it, the way they've done it, makes cloud storage really accessible. It makes what is a really complex subject incredibly easy to consume. And I just thought, this is incredible technology. And at my core, I am a techie, right? Yes, I do sales, and I've done sales for a long time, but I am a technical person. And when someone shows me a product that interests me, I really want to know how it works under the hood, right? And that's what I got. I got the bug, and I was like, right, I've got to understand how this thing works at a deepest level. And then when they said about joining them, I thought, you know what, there's no better way to get under the hood than to be inside the company. I joined, and here we are 6 months later.
Wow.
Where
did that time go, eh?
I know. Feels like a blink of an eye.
So explain to the people that watch this video what Vawlt does and how it works.
So Vawlt fundamentally is cloud storage. So we partner with the usual suspects. So we work with AWS, Azure, GCP, Wasabi, Backblaze, all the usual cloud storage providers. Where traditional cloud storage kind of falls down a little bit is that it's a single platform. So the way I try and explain it to people is, it's like running, if you're doing your backups to cloud storage, it's like backing it up to a single external hard drive, right? Yes, it's a secure hard drive. Yes, you can have encryption on it. Yes, you can have all of those levels of functionality, but it's still one hard drive, in the same way that Azure or AWS is just one platform. You can pay extra for geo-dispersed data, so you can have replicas in multiple locations with all those providers, but that's 2 copies, which costs more money. So there's fundamentally some issues there. There's also things like encryption. Encryption's great in those platforms, but the platforms are aware of the encryption keys. So there was an attack on Oracle a few months ago, earlier in the year, where they got into Oracle, but they went in at the top. They got into Oracle as a platform, not into one person. And the attackers were able to steal 6 million records from 140,000 tenants because they got access to everything. They got the encryption keys, they got the data, right? They can get out of the platform.
Yeah.
So the way that Vawlt works is it's more like RAID. So everyone's familiar with RAID in NAS devices. You have multiple hard drives and you group them together into one thing, and that allows a drive to fail. We do the same thing, but on a cloud scale. So we take storage from, let's say, AWS, Google, Wasabi, Backblaze, those 4. We'll then distribute data across all of them. So we don't make copies. We break the data up and we spread it out across those platforms. And it means that if one of them fails, you continue running like nothing's happened. We also maintain control of the encryption keys. The client does. We don't have any idea what the encryption keys are. The client has their own encryption keys, and they are only known by the client and by the individual file. The platform it sits on has no understanding of the encryption keys. It's a thing called zero-knowledge encryption. So it's very secure. It helps protect against cloud outages. It's also quicker because we're sending data to multiple places, so we can read and write from 4 platforms at a time. There's a lot of advantages. It's kind of like cloud storage 2.0, right? It's like the next way of doing it. And that's what I just got really passionate about it when they show. I was like, this is like the next thing. Right? This is great.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Are you unique in doing this?
Yeah. I've genuinely tried really hard to find something that does what we do. And there might be some things that do something similar, but there's nothing that does exactly what we do in the way that we do it. And there's definitely nothing that makes it as simple as Vawlt makes it. There are definitely very complex, advanced, enterprise-grade products that allow you to distribute data across multiple platforms. But generally, they're copies. They're not, shards of files. It's not the way that we're doing it. And they are very complex and require quite a lot of resources to be able to work, whereas we need 1 VM, 8 CPU cores, 8 gig of memory. That's it. That's all you got. Yeah.
How quickly is it for a customer to become a Vawlt customer, and what are the setups that are involved?
I can deploy Vawlt in less than 15 minutes. So from start to finish, having a conversation with the customer, getting them to the point. So generally speaking, we'll always do a proof of concept. So we give a 15-day trial to every single person that signs up. We will do that with them. We'll do it with yourself as well. And we'll walk them through. And from me, getting them on board to the platform, setting up their account, downloading the agent, and creating a cloud storage volume, I can do that in 15 minutes.
That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. I said it's easy.
And there's hardly any training.
No, you don't need any training. We've got one customer that we're talking to at the moment where we're going to save them enough in training costs that we're actually covering the cost of our own product. Wow. That's how easy it is to use. Yeah,
that's impressive. Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting with your product is before anybody adopts your product, they can find out how much it's going to cost them every month.
Completely
so they haven't got this fluctuation of cloud costs here, cloud costs here, cloud costs here.
No, it's completely transparent. So every time someone creates a volume, they have all of the different choices. So they can choose their minimum storage duration, they can choose their geographical dispersion, so where do they want the data to sit. They can do it worldwide, they can do it across Europe, or they can just do it in the UK. Then they choose the providers, so they can choose from the list. It's a long list, I know.
And it's growing.
It's growing all the time. We now have proper sovereign European cloud, so we've worked with Ionos, Impossible Cloud, and a few others that are guaranteeing that the data can never be processed outside the EU. So that helps with a lot of the regulations. So we've got a long list they can choose from. When they choose the provider, then they can choose the individual data center as well, down to the region that they want to go to. And that as they do that, the right-hand side, the price will show in real time. The price includes egress, so that's built in. So if they go for a 30-day minimum storage duration, which is standard for people like Wasabi and stuff like that, if you want more, they can add it at any time, but it's done in advance. So they go on and they say, I want to add 5 terabytes of egress, for example, and it tells them exactly how much it's going to cost, and that's it. There's no bill at the end of the month. There's no true up. We don't do any charges for things like APIs or transactions either. So, I ran some numbers recently where if someone's got a 500 terabyte volume and they're using, AWS, and they're making, they're doing immutability change rate of about 10% a month, you're looking at somewhere around $7,000 a month just in API charges. Not to do with the storage, not to do with egress, just API charges. With Azure, it could be up to $15,000 a month for the same amount, and we just remove it immediately. Those things no longer exist, even though we're using the same platforms. We're still using AWS, we're still using Azure, but those charges go out the window.
Wow. Yeah. And you were telling me that if you're running Veeam on immutable storage, that for every one of those API calls, there's a charge.
Yeah. And Veeam especially has a problem with it because Veeam has a block size either 1, 4, or 8 meg.
Right.
So if you're I think it's 4, it might be 6. I'm not a Veeam expert, I'll put that out there. But Veeam uses quite small block sizes, so it breaks everything up. And when you're using that in S3, especially with S3 storage, every one of those, if it's 1 megabyte, every single one of those is a transaction. So every time you place an immutable block, it will charge you for an API. Every time you change the properties of that immutable block, you will get charged an API fee. So, and those just rack up over time.
Are these charges apparent on the bill, or are they hidden charges?
They're apparent on the bill, but they're known. You know you're going to get charged for them, but
Right.
I don't think people realize how much they'll use
And how often?
and also it depends on the scenario. So like, you know, your normal day-to-day usage, change rate's not massive. You're not going to make, but the initial writes you're going to get charged for, but generally speaking, you're not going to update a whole bunch. But when you come to, let's say you have a disaster and you need to do a big read, that's when you get things, especially when you're looking at the cheaper storage tiers. So, you know, you've got egress fees, but you've also got things like rehydration and storage retrieval costs and all these other things where they're pulling it from different areas, different tiers. All of that's kind of blended in with the pricing. And I think the biggest frustration I hear from people, more than anything, is uncertainty over billing.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that there's charges. What are they? What does any of it mean, and how often do they change it? It's all the time.
And also, how often does somebody check it?
Yeah. How often are they sat there auditing it? Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen in the past, that people just let their bills rack up and rack up, and then somebody one day says, "How much are we spending?"
Yeah. Someone will look at it, a new CFO will come in or something and go, "Hang on."
One of the other thing is, you don't have to use the cloud, do you? You can use on-prem storage as well, can't you?
You can use both, yeah. So we can use any NAS, any S3 target as well. And you can blend all those together. So we can be true hybrid cloud. So I mentioned we need 4 targets.
Yes.
So you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those as on-prem devices. We're talking to a customer at the moment about doing exactly that. They've got around 10 petabytes of storage in various locations, but they're all S3 targets in different places. And at the moment they're struggling because they need a way for it to be kind of one unified piece of storage. And obviously there are a lot of ways of doing that, but we do it really easily. So we're looking at doing exactly that with them. We had another company where they have 2 NASs in 2 sites, but the resiliency, how do I handle failover? What if one of them goes down? How do I move all that stuff around? And we just go, well, if we just put, 2 NASs, 2 clouds, that way you could lose one of your entire sites or one of the clouds. It doesn't matter. Everything keeps running and you don't have to worry about failover. It just happens. So yeah, we can be a mix. We can be a mix of on-prem and cloud, or one of
and also people get the benefit of being on-prem is from a performance perspective.
Yeah, I think the performance element for us is kind of negated by the caching. So we allow, we have an agent. So whenever anyone accesses our storage, they're using an agent that's installed on a machine. That agent has a cache. So that cache can be, ideally you want it on-prem, so either on NAS, or you could just use a drive inside the machine. And that can be any size, and there's no charge for that cache. Any data that's in that cache, you're getting local performance. But if you've got our setup, you've got 4 choices, 2 of them are on-prem, 2 of them are cloud, you're going to need to read from at least 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So you're limited to your slowest connection at that point. But if they were all on-prem, you get full line performance. And we do parallel writes as well. So depending on how much resource you give the virtual machine, that's pretty much how fast it can go. So if they're on-prem and you've got a really beefy virtual machine, it can run 80 parallel workloads to all of those on-prem devices, and you can get some serious performance out of it.
So anyone in post-production or doing workflow it would fly.
Yeah. And you can use any storage device. It doesn't matter what it is. And you can have different volumes using different things. So if you've got small flash devices, you could use those for one of the volumes. If you've got disk, large disk ones, you could use that for another.
You've given me an idea. I'll talk about that.
Good.
I'll talk about it separately. So from an end user point of view, how do they know, or what do they see when they use Vawlt? Can they distinguish between what's on Vawlt and what's a local drive, or not?
It depends on how they use it. So the agent gets installed on a machine. Ideally, it's a server. It doesn't have to be a Windows file server or anything like that. It can be a Windows or a Linux machine. It can be Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server, or pretty much any Linux distribution. When you install the agent and you create a volume, when you create a volume with us, you're given a choice. the final choice on the page is, do you want a file system or do you want S3? You can also have both. If you choose a file system, it'll appear as an internal drive. So as far as that machine's concerned, you have a new local disk attached to the machine. It's virtual, so it doesn't appear in Disk Manager.
Yeah.
Sorry, technical caveats. I can't help myself. So as far as it's like a mapped network drive, really, but it's not. It's a local drive. So you get a drive letter. Z is the first one we do, and then it goes down from there. If it's an S3 target, then you use it exactly as you would any normal S3 target, except the target IP address is your local machine. So you don't point it to the cloud. You point it to the machine you've installed the agent on. The agent then breaks the data up and does what it does in the background. So yeah, you can either present it as an internal disk or you can have it as an S3 target. Why the internal disk is helpful is because you get the benefit of cloud storage, but you're using it like a normal local drive.
Yeah.
So we've got one of our big use cases is as a virtual NAS. So you install the agent, you could have 10 petabytes, whatever you want in the cloud, but let's say you've only got 100 terabytes on-prem. We act as a local NAS. You can share that folder inside your network, and the user has absolutely no idea that they're using cloud storage. As far as they're concerned, they're using a local NAS exactly as they would have done before. And that's really unique, like being able to do that and give them local performance using the caching is just a fantastic product. So, and yeah, the S3 stuff is just normal S3.
You know, during the last 14 days, we've had outages from AWS and obviously Azure. You know, they might have been down for 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever it was. So anybody adopting your platform wouldn't give a monkey's about whether you've lost.
They wouldn't have even known.
No.
They wouldn't have even noticed.
So any storage that's residing on those systems to Vawlt, it becomes an irrelevancy.
Yeah. So the way that we work is, like I said, we distribute data. We need to read from at least 2 of those platforms. We're about to change the way our algorithm works, and we're going to be moving from at the moment we work with 3 disks and a standby. If we're using NAS terminology, it's 3 clouds and a standby. We're moving to 4 active clouds, and we're changing the way it works in the background a little bit. But with that, we basically need to read from 2 or read from 3 clouds. If the data's in the cache, it doesn't matter if one of the clouds off, because it's going to read from the local cache anyway. So yeah, our customers actually wouldn't know. So there was also a few months ago there was an IBM outage as well. Our biggest customer, they use IBM as part of their Vawlt configuration, and they didn't know anything had happened. They saw all the reports of these IBM outages. I actually spoke to our CTO, Tiago. I was like, I know it's great that we've protected them, but I think we need to let people know that we're protecting them, because at the moment they just don't know. They don't realize that there's a problem, because we just protect them from it and nothing happens. I think it's just worth telling them, hey, we've saved you from something. But yeah, these guys are engineers, right? You know, talking to our CTO, sometimes I feel like I'm definitely not the smartest man in the room by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, they're kind of like mad scientists. It's great.
So one of the things that I hear a lot are cloud costs are ever increasing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know anyone whose cloud bill's actually gone down. No. You know, the average cost, I think on Azure last year it went up 23% across the board,
Right. Wow.
which is a big increase.
Yeah, massive.
You know, and one of the things that I can see Vawlt being used for is it can actually aid that cloud cost, because you know, there's a lot of cloud vendors now. We're not just stuck to the main 3.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot more coming out, and especially in Europe as well. And with the UK Data Act that came out on the 12th of September, people may or may not know about the UK Data Act, but do you want to explain what that is and how it affects UK companies and how it differs from European companies?
Yeah. So there's 2 things. You've got the European Data Act and the UK Data Act. The UK Data Act is basically the same. It's just got UK in front of it. There are a few things involved in that. There's also the DORA compliance regulation as well, which has come out, which has a similar thing. But essentially, one of the parts in it is around data portability, so being able to move data between platforms. Now, depending on how you read it, that can either be based on the people providing the service, or it can be based on the customer. It basically depends on what kind of data you're storing. With DORA, it's similar. Data portability is still in there. Essentially, what it means is you have to show that you are free to move data. and you can move data between providers with the minimum of penalties, essentially. So with our platform, you can switch any one of those 4 providers at any time. And again, everything we do is transparent. So if you decide you want to change it, you can change it. If you're moving away from a platform that charges egress, we'll tell you how much it's going to cost to egress. But if you were going to move away from a provider, let's say you're in Azure today and you want to move to a different provider, you have to egress all of your data. And that's going to cost you a substantial amount of money. For us, you're egressing a piece of the data, not all of it. So either a third or a half of it. So we're reducing massively what that is. If we can read the data from a different source, we will also do that because we don't need to always read from those providers.
Yeah.
So depending on how you've chosen your data dispersion, we could allow you to move from one provider to another completely free of charge, apart from the cost difference between the storage.
Yeah.
But that's all transparent. It's on the screen. Everything is exactly as it should.
So before you click the go button, you can actually see how much it's going to cost.
Exactly. And there's no surprise. You can't. There's no way of getting a bill afterwards. We'll tell you exactly on the screen what it's going to cost you to move.
So you put in the amount you want to move, you put your cloud providers, and it says this is going to cost you X.
Well, yeah. So what you would do is you would open your volumes. Let's say I've got 100 terabytes in a volume. You would say, right, this is my volume. And you'd say switch cloud providers. Your 4 cloud providers pop up on the screen. You would just click the one you want to change, choose a new one. It'll tell you on the right how much it's going to cost. Confirm. That's it. And there's no downtime while we're doing the migration. Everything stays completely up. Your performance doesn't get hit. Nothing. You can just sit and watch it migrating. That's it. And then when it's done, it's done.
Yeah, we've obviously done this, but it does take, well, it takes minutes, doesn't it, to switch?
It depends on how much data's there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, from a point of view of, I want to choose them and I want to choose them and click.
Yeah.
It's literally 3 or 4 clicks, isn't it?
Nothing, yeah. I want to do, I know back in the old days, we used to do this thing where you'd say, how many clicks is it to do something? And I want to do that. I want to work with someone and say, how many clicks is it to deploy a volume in Azure or AWS versus us? Because I think it'd be really interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, you guys, for me, seeing how you manage it and set it up in the background, you can actually see that it's so much quicker setting up a volume. It really is that much quicker than setting up on the other cloud providers.
Because we do everything with APIs. So as soon as you go through and you choose everything, our system, so this is the other thing I sometimes have to get people to understand, because they see that cost on the right and then they think, so do I have to go and buy the storage now from those guys? No, that's an all-in-one cost. So we will provision the storage with all of those providers. We'll go and buy the buckets. We'll deliver them back to you. We do all of the stuff in the background completely automated. So when you click go, you'll see a little swirling thing that says creating and then done. And when it says done, in your agent, all of a sudden in your file explorer, a new drive appears.
For me, it makes cloud storage really simple. You're removing all the complexity, and it is really a simple cloud service that brings together all these cloud providers into one portal.
I think simplicity is one thing. I think resiliency and simplicity are the 2 bits. So if you look at our costs, right, so we're kind of in a similar price bracket to if you were buying Azure and AWS, right? So if you were just going to go and buy storage from those guys, that's kind of a similar thing. But the thing you've got to remember is that within that cost, we're providing a certain amount of egress, right? There's no additional charges, there's no API fees on those other things. That's one thing. But the reality is it's not like for like. If you went to those guys and you buy that bucket, you're buying a bucket in one region. What we're providing is actually the equivalent to a geo-replicated target with AWS, Azure, or GCP, where you're paying...
And zero downtime.
Yeah, exactly. But you're paying double. You've also got then, if you do it with the traditional guys, you're paying for 2 copies, so you've got to pay for double the amount of storage. And then you've got all the charges for moving the data around between regions. We're doing a geo-replicated storage target for the same cost as one normal bucket with those guys, and we're making it simpler.
I'll explain that for our viewers in a little bit more detail. So if you've got, I'm going to say 120 terabytes just for maths purposes, we would chunk that 120 terabytes up into 4 30 terabyte chunks and give them each 30 terabytes. And then your RAID sits over the top looking after all those bits.
Whereas if you did it with the traditional vendors, you would have 120, so you're paying 240, and then you're transferring them. So for those guys, that we save a massive amount there. So we're providing that level of resiliency just at the single volume cost, which is crazy.
Obviously, with the rise of AI and everything else, how do you see the cloud storage market developing in the next 5 years?
I think storage as a whole is growing massively for everyone, right? Data sets specifically are getting larger. Everyone is storing more data, especially with the rise of AI, because now data is more valuable than ever. It used to be that data about people was valuable, so companies didn't want to throw data away because they could farm that data for marketing purposes, or they could sell it for marketing purposes, or whatever that might be. Whereas now, data is valuable for training AIs. So people want to maintain that data as long as they can, but the old ways of maintaining data were on tape. But when data's on tape, it's not accessible to AIs because it's not online. So these data lakes is the new growth. That's where all of these AIs are being fed from. And how you go and make a data lake is a very large question, right? You can do it on-prem with very large storage environments like Ceph and things like that. And we work very well in that mode. So if someone wants an pretty much infinitely expandable data lake that they can just top up the egress when they want to do big reads, because really it's an archive. They'll store the data, and then when they want to train the AI can read it all once. And when they do that, they can go onto our platform and say, right, we're going to do one big read. How much is it going to cost to do that one big read? That much, purchase, done, and then it does the big read. But also with our caching, you get that local performance, so they can have as much as they want of that. If you've got different regions all wanting to read the same data sets, so say you've got a cluster in America, you've got a cluster in the UK, you've got a cluster in Germany, they're all able to read from the same data in those locations. And there's no charges for any of that. So yeah, we definitely work in data lakes, and I think what we're going to see is people wanting freedom to move their data around. I think that's the big thing. How do I store it and where do I do it? We've got one customer right now, I mentioned earlier, where they've got 10 petabytes of on-prem. The goal is to end up in the cloud. They don't want to be on-prem. They want their data in the cloud. So how do we migrate? How do we do this? And what we just spoke about earlier is all we would do. So we create the volume over their 4 on-prem storage targets, and then one by one, we switch one of those NASs out for a cloud provider. It migrates the data, and now they're in the cloud.
One of the other things about your product is with the prevalence of ransomware attacks that are occurring on more than a daily basis, is if you use your product and they hacked into AWS, for example, and they saw your data, they wouldn't be able to read it.
No. So I mentioned earlier zero-knowledge encryption, but essentially, let's say you've got a Vault folder. We put a gigabyte file into it, right? We'll break that gigabyte file into many multi-megabyte chunks. So we don't break it into 4 pieces and then move them. We're making it lots of multi-megabyte size chunks, and those then get encrypted independently, 256-bit AES encryption, and they get distributed to the cloud. But the cloud has no knowledge of what that encryption key is. So let's say exactly what you just said. Someone got into the AWS bucket. What they would find is just a colossal number of small multi-megabyte files, with no way of knowing how they're linked to each other. And even if they did somehow get through the encryption, which I know over time anyone can get through it, but you get 256-bit, they get through it, they're going to find a shard. They're not going to find the entire file. They're going to find a piece of a file with no referenceability to where the rest of it is. So yeah, from that side, it's incredible security.
What can we provide as obviously a partner of Vawlt and yourself to demonstrate your product to the audience that are watching this? How does that work?
Very simple. So have a conversation with you, say they want to give it a go, you set up a call with me, we set them up with a 15-day trial, I will show them how to configure it, we'll get them up and running. They do need a machine to run the agent on. It can be Windows or Linux. For the purposes of a POC, please choose Windows just because it's much easier, but we can work at Linux as well, it's not a problem. 8 CPU cores, 8 gig of memory, and that will fully saturate a 1 gigabit internet connection. And that's it. And we give you a 15-day trial. We're up and running. Generally, when we do a POC, we are from start to finish on the call, 30 to 45 minutes.
Brilliant. Right, Stefan, that's fantastic. I'd like to thank everyone for watching this, and we'll see you again. Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
Thank you.